In 2013, new bungalows were being built at Sunnybank Avenue on the Pendower estate in West Newcastle. The building work exposed a coal seam. This generated a lot of excitement locally, as coal mining had once been the foundation of this area's economy, with dozens of pits scattered across the landscape. However, it had been 80 years since Benwell's last pit closed. This meant that the Pendower discovery was the last coal to be mined in the area. Even more exciting was the fact that this seam may have been the site of the first coal ever to be mined in Benwell. Pendower estate is built on the site of a former civilian settlement attached to the Roman fort of Condacum, which stood at the top of the hill just south of the line of the Roman wall, the present-day West Road. The Romans occupied this area for about 300 years until around AD 410. Although there is no direct evidence of their coal mining activities here, they are known to have mined coal elsewhere, and it is likely that they took the advantage of Benwell's plentiful coal seams outcropping near the surface of the slopes of the Tyne. The area can therefore stake a claim to be one of the first coal-producing areas in the world. The coal seam exposed at Pendower was of poor quality, containing lots of shale. Much better quality coal is to be found about a quarter of a mile to the east in the high main seam, which comes very close to the surface in the graveyard of St James's Parish Church on Benwell Lane. The owner of that seam, John Buddle, donated the land for the graveyard and arranged to be buried there. It is reputed that he had his vault cut out of his own coal seam, and is in fact interred in the much valued mineral which made him rich. It is unlikely that the other workers in the coal industry who were buried here were as well organised and provided for. We have records of 6 coal miners buried here who were killed by the need for coal, but there were many more deaths in the mines of Benwell and Scotswood over the years in which the industry thrived. Coal mining was not a safe occupation. Men were killed by rock falls, gas, explosions, faulty equipment and floods. In the case of the most infamous incident locally, the Montague pit disaster, the fault lay with the failure of management to make use of records of earlier mine workings. 38 men and boys were killed when they broke through to the disused workings of the Paradise pit and were drowned in the subsequent flood. The memorial to those who died in the Montague pit disaster in 1925 is in Elswick Cemetery, but records show that the Montague pit killed 78 more men and boys in its long history, including Joseph Ryan, Alfred Stubbs, William Sanderson and William Harrison, who are all buried in St James's graveyard. Joseph Ryan, a married man with 4 children, was killed in 1891 when he took a naked light into the area in which there had been escape of gas. He died from injuries sustained in the ensuing explosion. In 1932, Alfred Dickinson Stubbs, a coal cutter, was electrocuted. The following year, William Sanderson was crushed by tubs while working as a rollieway man. The rollieway was a path or road high enough for a horse to walk along, pulling the rolly, carrying tubs from the coal face. The rollieway man's job was to keep the rollieway in good repair. Charles William Harris worked as a filler in the Montague pit, loading coal into tubs. In 1935, he was killed by a fall of stone. Thomas Hall was only 12 years old when he got out of a lift cage at the wrong side and fell to his death at the seam below. The history of pits is marred by accidents and deaths. Of the 6 miners with memorials in St James's graveyard, the earliest to die was William Simpson in 1878. He worked at the South Benwell colliery as a hewer cutting coal. He was killed by a fall of clay. According to records, at least 19 other men were killed in this pit in different accidents. In 1906, William Richardson was killed by a roof fall in the Charlotte pit just north of the graveyard. As a deputy overman, he was responsible for supervising a shift of men. The Charlotte pit was part of Benwell colliery, where at least 30 men were killed over the years. This pit was the last to close in Benwell. It stood to the west of Condickham Road, only yards away from the site where the Roman seam was exposed in 2013. Condickham Road was previously known as Charlotte Pit Lane, and the house of the pit manager can still be seen today, one of the few visible remains of what was once the area's main industry. There were those who escaped death in the pits, of course. David Wharton, who at the age of 69 was still working as a hewer, arguably the most physically demanding job in a pit at the coal face, died in 1910 in the aged miners' cottage at Throckley, after what could only have been a very short retirement.